Hello, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for joining us. If you're just joining us for this talk or for continuing with us through these automation star test automation deep dive, we have great talks going on. We have gone through different topics and it's time to connect. So, thank you to everyone that is connected right now. Thank you, Dot, saying hi from the UK. How are you? Hello, how are you, Thomas, Marina? Brigitte, thank you so much for joining us. Specialis, thank you for being part of this. Just sharing with you, you might have heard it before, which is fine, but if not, I'm sharing it with you for being part of this test automation deep dive. We and of this community, the virtual community that keeps learning and keeps upgrading in their careers. We have a special discount for you if you want to meet in person, if you want to network, and if you want to connect with more people from your community. Come and meet us in Automation Star. It's in Amsterdam from the 10th to the 11th of November. Loads of insights, very technical, going into all the topics for 2 days. It's going to be fantastic. So use the code webinar10 for yourself or for somebody in your team that you think you needs to come to this conference. And yeah, that's our gift for you for coming to our virtual day. Sorry, our deep dive today. But it's time to go with our talk, and I am having here Ana Duarte, and I'm very happy to say hi. How are you doing?
Hi, Joseph. I'm good. And you?
All good, all very good. I don't want to lay you anymore. I think we're ready. So the virtual floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much, and thanks everyone for joining. I hope you enjoyed this session. Also thanks for the Eurostar team to invite me to give this talk. I don't know if you saw this talk before because I already presented this at last Automation Star and this year in Edinburgh at the Eurostar. But thanks for being here, and let's start. So I'm a technical documentation manager at X-Ray. I'm from Porto, Portugal, and I have a background from. I am a journalist by training, and I remember the first time I thought about technical communication and technical documentation as a career when I went to high school. 20 years ago. It's longer than I like to admit, but it is what it is. At that time, we had to buy a graphical calculator, a huge sophisticated Casio machine. And I was 15 at the time, and my cousin she was older, and she said, "Oh, you bought this amazing machine. You can do tons of stuff with this. You can go to the moon and come back." And I was like, okay, how do you know? Do they teach this in math school? They teach you how to do sophisticated operations? And she was like, no, I just read the manual. I read the instructions, and that's how I learned. And I was like, oh, okay. So maybe we should take a closer look at the instructions and manual material when we buy products because they can really help you a lot. And that's how I first got into this technical documentation world. So, like I said, I'm talking to you from Porto, Portugal. I'm a journalist by training. I have a master's and a degree in communications. I'm also a certified technical writer and knowledge documentation manager by Technical Writing HQ, and I've been working in tech for like 10 years now. I also love to read. I try to read at least 50 60 books a year. I really love animals. I'd also love to be a vet if I wasn't a writer, but I really don't like bugs and snakes, which is funny that I don't like bugs because I work with a lot of bugs working at X-Ray. So I kind of love it also. So the agenda for today, I'll briefly talk to you about X-Ray as a company and what we do here. Then I'll do a brief introduction about this talk. Then I'll go through my journeys both as a writer and also regarding a documentation page. Then I'll share with you some of my challenges as a technical writer and documentation manager. I'll provide some possible solutions for those same challenges. Then I'll provide some examples using obviously X-ray documentation, and then we come to the end of the session, and we have some time for Q&A. Please don't take this too seriously. I like to say that I'm not an expert or a guru. I'm a student. I'm always learning, looking for ways to evolve. and to be able to do a better job. And I'm also here to learn from you and to hear your insights. So I expect that you can provide feedback at the end. So, X-Ray as a company, we have three product lines: X-Ray, the main app, then Exporter for reporting activities. Then we also have the X-Ray exploratory app, as the name suggests, for exploratory testing. And we have a segment, X-Ray Enterprise, for bigger companies that need more customizable and tailored solutions. X-Ray, as you may know, is a test management app. It works in the Atlassian marketplace and it's a Jira add-on. Like I said, we have three main product lines: X-Ray, Exporter, and Exploratory app. These are three separate apps. And we have our products being used by more than 10 million testers every day, developers, Q&A managers, engineering managers, product managers, and they manage more than 100 million test cases each month. These are some of our customers. I believe you may be familiar with most of these logos. Okay, now to the more technical part of the presentation. So, what do I believe that is happening right now, not only in testing documentation, but in technical and product documentation in general? Documentation is often too technical, which means that it fails most of the times to explain the context. It doesn't explain the why behind the how. Why the product works the way it does, how can it benefit the user. It often lacks to give this explanation. And how can we change this? By providing more examples, more use cases, more real life scenarios, not just explaining what the product does, but how the user can achieve their goal by seeing concrete examples and use cases of what is being explained in the documentation page. And with this, we can make the documentation more user friendly. Still technical, of course, because it is what it is, and we can't go away from that, but it can still be relatable. And when we talk about documentation, what is it? What are the main pillars? At least this is for me. This is not an exact science, as you can imagine, but I believe that you can't scale without documentation. If every time you have to stop to explain a simple task, whatever that task is. It can be, for instance, onboarding a colleague or a customer. If you have to explain to stop every time you need to explain that process to a new person joining a process, it just doesn't work. So for anything to be scalable, it has to have always documentation supporting it. That's crucial for scaling. And what's the main thing about documentation? It has to be useful. If you don't provide documentation that is useful at all, then you might as well just don't provide anything. It's documentation that isn't useful. It's just the same thing as a blank page. So make sure that when you are providing that documentation, that it's actually a document that will allow someone to perform a task, to execute a task, and to achieve a goal. If it's not useful, you might as well not have anything online at all. And it's simple. What should documentation do? Describe, explain, instruct. And you must, if possible, to make it useful and more relatable, provide examples, use cases, real life scenarios. Always think that the what ifs are your friend. Put yourself in the reader's shoes and provide examples so that they can go beyond the how and also understand the why behind the instructions that you are providing. And also, for you to be able to provide useful and scalable documentation, you have to know your audience. And this can be tricky because you don't really have a way of knowing who exactly is sitting on the other side of the screen. It might be someone that has been using your product for years. It can also be someone that has been using your product for seconds. So this is it's tricky. It's hard to know, but at least try to know who your personas are. So in the case of X-ray documentation, we have testers, developers, product managers, engineering managers, and also project managers. Essentially speaking, doesn't mean we can't have any other personas, but this is our main personas. So, about the journeys. This is my journey as a technical writer. Every time I have to write about a new feature or a product, what's the cycle? How does it work? It all starts with me attending the development. I try to follow the developing team, the developers, learn how they work and what are they doing, what are they trying to implement. And then the product team opens a ticket. I have a board on Jira, so that they can easily communicate their needs regarding documentation. And then when I get a ticket, that ticket usually has materials for me to work on, and then I start doing my research. What will this feature be? How will it look? Who can help me with this? Is this enough? Is this not? I might have the need to go and ask more questions to the stakeholders involved. Then I see if that material I was gathering is enough for me to be able to start writing or not. And then I go to the development phase. I start writing. I test the feature or the product as I write to make sure that what I'm writing about is actually working and it's also truthful, to make sure that what I write will exactly reflect what the product is showing. Then it's time, when I'm done, it's time to get a review. So I usually ask the person that opened the ticket in the first place to review my documentation to make sure that that is communicating what we wanted to communicate to our readers. And then eventually it will be time to maintain and update. After the documentation goes live, it will be, in our case, at least publicly available to anyone, but it will require updates sooner or later because, as you know, software products are always changing, and documentation is also a live organism. And for you to be able to keep documentation useful, you have to be updating it all the time. Otherwise, it will be outdated. So it's a cycle that really never ends. Now, the page journey. So, like I said, I'm a journalist by training, and they teach us in journalism school a method that is the inverted pyramid. And this means that when you start writing, you start by writing the more important things first, what is relevant at the top, then you go down to the least important elements. And that's why I try to do also on the exterior documentation. So usually I'll start with an overview and an introduction, because this will allow the reader to understand if he's on the right page or not. So it doesn't, you won't have to waste any more time reading the whole page. So this introduction has to be informative enough for people to be able to understand if they are on the right page or not. Then I'll start to explain the concept, the product or the feature that I'm writing about. And then I will provide examples. I do this a lot by using screenshots. Screenshots are my favorite visual aid, so that the reader can easily understand what you are writing about, because a page with only text will be a poor page. It won't be useful. So examples with screenshots, diagrams, also use cases. Just explain, okay, this component will help you if you are trying to write a subtext execution in this case, or in this case, if you try to get a real life scenario by imagining any kind of company that can be using your page, just try to put yourself on the reader's shoes and provide concrete examples, real life scenarios, and use cases. Then, by the end of the page, I try to provide actionable insights. And usually, I do this by having a macro that we use Confluence with support troubleshooting, because sometimes people can read your page and still have questions, and what can they do. So the best way to mitigate this is to always have a note by the footnote of the page where you can have a link where your readers can contact your support team or with an email for them to write their questions and doubts, so that they don't have to actually leave the page and try to look for a contact information. This way, you just reserved a bit of space at the end of your page in every page, so that the reader, if he still has questions, he can easily find a way to contact you and get more information. And with this, we with this comes the challenges. So, what kind of challenges do I face as a technical writer? The same as the readers. Sometimes I deal with overly technical documentation, and this is normal because the first documentation I get is usually from my colleagues, from developers or product managers, and it's normal because they are not writing experts and they don't really write with the reader in mind. So they just write explaining the product or the feature, and documentation often is too technical even for me, and this leads to more questions. So what I have to do here is to try to make documentation less technical and more relatable. And for this, I try to provide more context because, like I said, documentation is often missing the why behind the how, and we must show our readers what the benefits are from, for example, clicking that specific button and not clicking that button. This is important also because, like I said, we have readers with different levels of expertise, and there is no way for us to know who will be reading the page X, Y, or Z, who will be sitting on the other side of the screen. So we must try to have documentation with a lot of context and examples that can be easily understood by any type of readers or users. Also, always keeping documentation up to date is a challenge because for this I have to be constantly communicating with products and remind them to let me know every time there's a change on a feature or a product, because that won't be automatically translated to our documentation website. So I have to constantly remind them to let me know when anything changes, because if a product has a change and you don't reflect that on your documentation page, the users won't have a way to know that that change happened, and this can be a problem. If this happens, usually you'll have tons of tickets for the support team coming in, and we want to mitigate that. If you have a good documentation website in general, it's likely that you'll have less work on the document on the support department. So this is important. And with this comes, as I was mentioning, the challenge of making others care about documentation. As I often say, unfortunately, I feel that documentation is the most neglected branch in software engineering. So it's all about evangelizing, making others care about documentation, communicating a lot with the product team, with the support team, with the customer success team, basically anyone that can help you being able to write and to have useful documentation. Now, solutions, or some solutions that I believe that can be used for these challenges. About making documentation technical yet relatable. Like I said, this is probably the major challenge we have, and for this we have to use use cases, provide examples, and explain the why behind the how. In this case, this is a segment from an X-ray documentation page. And we explain that associating test executions with a test plan in X-ray centralizes tracking and simplifies reporting by consolidating results in one place. And then, how can this help? And then the answer comes in this highlighted segment. It helps because it improves organization, ensuring all relevant tests are accounted for, etc., etc. So you can see here, when we are explaining a feature, we also have to explain its benefits for the user. Demystifying technicalities. Most of the times we write documentation by providing too complex, complex language, complex jargon. And for this, we have to keep in mind when we are writing to provide clear, simple explanations, write in a simple way, so that it's easier for anyone reading to understand, because we don't know uh, who will be reading and consuming this documentation. It can be a super experienced developer or tester, but it can also be someone that is also an experienced tester or developer, but it's not super fluent in English. And in our case, we provide documentation in English, so we have to consider this all the times. And for this, we have a section in our documentation just dedicated to mitigate this problem, that is called TDT, tips, tricks, and tutorials. And as the name suggests, we provide tutorials, tricks, and tips, and we write this documentation like we are writing for a friend, with more examples, even more than the standard documentation. We put ourselves really on the reader's shoes. So it's important when you are writing documentation, if this is of course very time consuming and very hard to maintain, but it's important that you consider having a section just less technical, more user friendly, so that you can provide a more simple documentation, and very specific, in our case, to challenges that we already know our users might be facing. So we will already provide documentation for features that can be more complex. And we do this by also analyzing support tickets and from getting feedback from our customers. So every time we see that we have an integration or a feature that will be harder to understand, we already provide a page for this section, whether it's a tutorial, simple tips, and tricks for the user to be able to deal with it as soon as the feature is live. Now, also some examples regarding first documentation. I already showed you some, but let's dive into a bit more. So always provide context, and show how the user can benefit from the instructions you are giving. Don't just explain features. Always explain why they exist. In this example, creating a subtest execution as a subtest of a requirement allows you to track test progress directly in the agile board. As you see, we are explaining the why behind the wow. So never assume the users understand the purpose of your product or your feature. Always provide clear and concrete examples. So always try to be specific, straight to the point. Don't just say that it will be you will have an incorrect user input if anything goes wrong. What's the input? If is it a password? Is it a username? Is it a login? Is it an email? If that's the case, then say, if it's, for instance, an incorrect password, say it's a password. Don't just say that it's a user input. Be specific and clear all the time. Always use visual aid and step-by-step guides whenever possible. Like I said earlier, my favorite visual aid are screenshots. I usually use, so that we can be able to match the screenshots with the text. Always use like little circles with numbers, so that you can easily identify the element that you are writing about on the screenshot. And visual aids can be helpful for a lot of people, because no one learns things the same way. Some people prefer to read, others understand better by having visual aids. So try to find the middle ground. Now, examples, now as a technical writer. So, you will face, if you are a writer, silent success, because if documentation is useful and if it works, no one will tell you how it was good and how it helped them. But on the other hand, if just a link is broken and not working, all hell will break loose and everyone will complain and you will be guilty as charged. So always be prepared to be an unsung hero, because this is a role that is essential, but it's a support role. And if everything goes well, it's unlikely that you'll get good feedback. On the other hand, if just a link is broken, everyone will start complaining and you'll have a hard time. And I call this not me, but I really like this idea. I don't know if you are into physics, but it's called the Schrodinger's documentation paradox. If there are docs, no one will read them. On the other hand, if there are no docs, everyone will complain. This happens to everyone, so don't feel alone. We can compare this to a theater. I mean, when you go to see a movie, or when you go to a theater, you never think about the makeup artists, the designers, the sound engineerings. It's the same when you are writing documentation. If everything is working and if you are writing a piece of information that will help someone execute their task or achieve a goal, then that's all there is to it. No one will clap, no one will thank you or give you positive feedback. At least not on my experience, because, like I said, it's an essential role, but it will go unnoticed if, especially if you do a good job. If you do a bad job, it's likely that you'll have negative feedback. Another example, it's the same with a football game. If the referee is doing a good job, the match will flow, everything will go smoothly. However, if the referee is not doing a good job, you will notice it, and you'll become the villain of the game, and it won't be such an enjoyable experience. So it's the same when you are writing. If you do a good job, no one will notice you, but if you do a bad job, it's very likely that everyone will notice that. So, what can I conclude in my experience as a technical writing and documentation manager? I believe that knowledge regarding the area or industry that you are working in must be shared, and you can't scale without documentation. And I really believe that there's not a specific reason to take a little effort into making documentation more relatable, more accessible, and less technical, and more user friendly. And for this, just be sure to use more examples to put yourself in the reader's shoes and provide more visual aids and guides. And documentation and testing, they are all about answering questions, because you are, both as a tester and as a reader, as a writer, you are looking for answers, you are looking for explanations, and it's also a bit about storytelling. When you are writing documentation, be sure that you are telling a story that will be able to teach and to help someone execute a task and achieve a goal. So for that, always provide examples and use cases, but be prepared that most of the times when you are writing and managing documentation, success will go unnoticed because of the Schrodinger's documentation paradox. And yeah, that's it on my end. You have here my email, and also my LinkedIn URL.
Thank
And
you
that's it.
so much, Anna. Thank you
Thank you.
so much for your talk there. As Dot says there in the chat, documentation writers, like testers and housework, only notice when it goes wrong. We have our first question here, and it's from Dot. Again, if anybody has any questions, just pop them into the little question mark with the on the right of the chat. And Dot asks, do you set up any tests of the documentation with a user as part of the development process? If so, what advice would you give?
So what I try to do before anything goes live, like I said, the moment I'm writing, I'm also testing. So I never write about the future without testing it first. And before the documentation goes live, I always try to ask not only the person who opened the ticket, and that's usually a product manager, but I also like to ask a colleague or another member of my team, just to have a new set of eyes reviewing it before it goes live, because that's always useful. But I understand that in our daily jobs, it can be hard to find the time for that. So the advice I give is, I would give, is to try to test it at the same time you are writing, because you will notice if anything is not working or is wrong, and this will be the time to change it in your documentation page. So test at the same time you are writing.
I think that's very good advice. Thank you so much. It's a great answer for the question, and thank you for what you're sharing there. I have a couple of questions myself, if you're okay. And
Sure.
the first one, we have been chatting about AI for the past 2 years a lot, and talking about the job that you do over there. Um, is AI a solution for documentation? What is your approach to that question?
For me, it's an assistant, especially in my case, because I'm the only technical writer at the company. So I use AI tools every day as an assistant. Basically, I have already written prompts to be able to help me and save some time. And every time I need a second opinion or just simple proofreading, um, I use AI tools. So I see it not as a replacement for a writer, because I don't believe that they have already tools that good. But I use it as an assistant, yeah, every day, and I think that's useful because, like I said, no one really has the time every day to help you review your documentation. And I'm not a native English speaker, so AI tools can also help me with the proofreading, with editing. Sometimes they also help with the blank page drama, just to help me find the best approach to start writing a page. So yeah, I believe AI can be helpful as an assistant, as an editorial assistant.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. And just one more question I had, and it's you were talking about links and when links are broken and how people approach them. But have you faced any accessibility challenges in documentation? Have you been able to bring something into the accessibility realm?
Yeah, like I said, that's one of the main challenges of documentation because you never know who you are writing for. So for to mitigate that, I wrote documentation guidelines so that anyone in the company, and also anyone who will join the company knows, has a way to know how we write and how we approach documentation, and what kind of language we use. So that would be my first go-to. It's always try to start writing in a way that you follow some requirements, some criteria to make sure that everything is more consistent, more coherent, and everyone is following the same criteria by having these guidelines. Other than that, yeah, I know there are special tools to be able to mitigate people with special needs. We are not working with that right now because, like I said, it's just me in the team writing the documentation. But I believe that's very important. AI can also help with that. But yeah, that's one of the biggest challenges in documentation, is being able to write in a universal way and with a universal language, because you will never know who will be reading your docs.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you to
Sure.
everyone that has come to the talk. Thank you for being part of it. We're very happy that you are part of this event. And Anna, we will see you very, very soon again.
I hope so. Thank you for having me, and thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks a million. And oh yeah, very interesting talk and interesting to hear how you are using AI as well. Thanks, says lot. And yeah, thanks to everyone. And we have one more talk. I'll see you in 30 minutes. Enough time to go make a cup of tea, and I'll see you around. Thanks a million.